Welcome to the SPS Digital Learning Hour, brought to you by the Digital Learning and Assessment Department. We're coming to you from a conference room in Central Office, bringing you the latest news in Springfield Public Schools in regards to technology, along with inspiring interviews from teachers who are using technology in the classroom. We'll also inform you the latest updates, practices, and news as it pertains to our district. Whether you are new to using technology in the classroom or a seasoned vet, we are here to help. Thanks for joining us today. I am your host, Mike Thomas, and we'll get right into our news with In Case You Missed It. So in case you missed it, we are starting to use Yammer a lot. And one of the things that Yammer has been really good for is communicating about PowerTeacher Pro. If you are a teacher who is using PowerTeacher Pro and you have questions on how things are supposed to be set up, how things work best, you should reach out on Yammer. You've got the whole entire district who's able to help answer your questions. Not just me, and we'd love to hear from you. We are getting closer and closer to the first report cards being due. So I imagine there's a lot of questions coming up. Post them out there. If you've got questions on how things are calculated or how it works, you got to let us know and we can come and help you, whether it's virtually or in person. And speaking of in person, in case you missed it, next week is our next edition of WeLearn Wednesday. For this first edition in October, we have 4 sessions going on for you. The first of which is Class Dojo. So if you are at the beginning of the year and you're trying to build positive community, we've got a tool for you. Class Dojo has the ability to create positive classroom culture, give students a voice, and help you connect in authentic ways to parents. So come on down and see what it's all about. Also, we are having a OneNote class notebook presentation. Are you tired of carrying around boxes of paper and notebooks? Do you wish your students would stop losing every piece of paper you give them? Enter OneNote, a digital notebook that can go anywhere and save anything. If you've never used or heard of OneNote, then this is a must session for you. There is also a Working with Windows 10 and Office 365 session. This virtual workshop will cover the top 3 exciting tools in Windows 10, working with Immersive Reader, the dictation tool, and time for participant questions. So this one is a must. You need your laptop to have Windows 10, which you can actually go out to the IT Hub and update yourself. Although I do caution, make sure you always back up your files when you do so. The 4th session is actually a drop-in session. So we have another Dino and PowerSchool Pro gradebook training. So if your grades are not calculating correctly, you're having trouble seeing all your students, if you're stuck, come to this informal working session and we will work through all of your issues. In case you missed it, PowerPoint actually has the ability to record your screen. So if you are in the process of trying to create videos where you are teaching your students how to do something on the computer, if you're looking in that flipped classroom model or you're just trying to explore out the blended learning model, PowerPoint actually has the ability to do this thing called screencasting. Right now, there's programs out on the internet that you can go down to. Screencastify, for example, is one where you can record your screen and you talking. There's many ways that you can do that. But all of those programs, they have different things built in that cost extra if you want to do it and make it look as professional as possible. PowerPoint has this tool already built in. So you get rid of the watermarks and the logos, and it's right in PowerPoint. So it can use that, and then you can export it out as a video. If you want, check that out. If you search the Microsoft Help Center, you just type in PowerPoint screencasting, and there's directions right there, which you can also embed questions into. In case you missed it, this last blog was all about Unified Classroom, and it's essentially just an overview. You guys, we should be getting super excited as in the next couple of weeks, Unified Classroom is going to be turned on. So for those of you who are early adopters and you are interested in using it, it's going to be available very soon. So with that in mind, we have started our series of blog posts all about Unified Classroom. And this first one is just an overview, just of the things that it can do, which is super exciting, especially if you start thinking about what things you can do in Brightspace versus what you wish it would do in Brightspace. Unified Classroom has fixed a lot of those problems for us. So go check it out, and you'll see why I entitled the post, "I Finally Found What I'm Looking For." So that is it for this week's In Case You Missed It. Coming up next is my ISTE Minutes. Do you have students who doodle? Students who, as you're talking and you're wanting them to take notes, they are just kind of drawing? I know I did, and I also know that I was one of those students. Well, one of the things I learned at ISTE this past year, or at least it was first introduced to me that I spent more time over the summer learning about, was this thing called sketchnoting. If we break that down, we know exactly what sketching is, that would be the drawing part, and noting, which is taking notes. So there's a way that you can actually combine these things together. So you no longer have to say things like, "Stop doodling and pay attention." Sketchnoting is essentially this: visual notes that are drawn in real time. By drawing pictures of what you are hearing, the students' minds are engaged in multiple modalities, often leading to increased retention of information. So there's this site out there which helps explain more, which will be in our show notes about what sketchnoting is and what it looks like. But some of the research has shown that it helps retention by up to 55%. So it helps students up to 50% better retention. I know that's one of the things that we really want our students to be able to do, is to be able to recall information and recall it authentically. Not well, these are my 10 facts about Mongolia, blah, 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 blah. No, we want them to be able to understand what we're doing and explain it in a way that works for them. So I'm going to have some examples of sketchnoting out there. It is something that is pretty cool. But here's the thing. You don't have to be an expert drawer or doodler to do this. It is just something that you can draw whatever it makes sense to you. One of the important things to remember, and even to make sure your students understand, is that sketchnoting isn't about the art. It's about the concepts that are learned during that time. Making ideas, connections, thinking about the process, visualizing and organizing your thinking. So a lot of times you can see different ways to connect your notes. There are many great examples of this. This is something that I feel like has been new in the last few years, and that I think is an exciting thing, especially for our students who have a hard time focusing. By giving them a way that they're focusing, no longer are we getting the drawings of Fortnite or whatever it is they're choosing to draw at that time. But their drawing is more, and their doodling is the more authentic with what they are learning. Taking notes along the way. Sketchnoting is not just about drawing pictures and writing notes next to them. It is about making connections to what they are learning. So to wrap up this section about sketchnoting, I want to give you just a few tips and tricks on how to introduce sketchnoting to your students. So remember, for sketchnoting, you and your students don't need to be an artist. They can be, and that's great, but you don't have to be. So for those students who are art averse when it comes to drawing, you can remind them that it's not about how great of an artist you are. Also, sketch notes is a way to take notes, so it's important to have some examples for the students to see. So what I would encourage is that you take a TED Talk that you would like to share with your students, and then you listen to it, you create sketch notes along the way, and then you share that with your students. By doing that, you're helping set an example, and then you can turn around and model using a different TED Talk with those students so that they get practice doing it, because that's a great time to do it. Other great times, depending on the grade level you are teaching, could be read-alouds. You can use it for test review. You can do it with the instructional videos or other activities where note-taking can be useful. Also, it's pretty important to share them, because then students will gain more confidence when they are able to see what everybody else is doing. So one thing that you could do with sharing is you could take a learning walk. You could do it in small groups. You can also have them use the camera function on their laptop and take a picture of it and post it to something like Padlet. Also, you can encourage students to use different tools. Some are paper pencil, some colored pencils, some markers. Some will even want to use the laptop and use Microsoft Paint to paint that picture. Totally fine, and totally valid ways to do it. The last thing to really remember about sketchnoting is that this is not an assessment. It's more of like a cognitive tool. It helps them understand, it helps them recall. It is not something that you are going to use for evaluation. The purpose behind it is for learning and note-taking. It is not for assessing. I know we do a lot of assessing, and for a lot of students, the way that you would grade something like this would be, did they do it? Did they listen? Maybe they're sketchnoting, there's very few drawings and more note-taking, and that's totally fine, because that might be the way the student learns. It's really important to encourage creativity and drawing with their note-taking. And so the last little thing I want to leave you with on the sketchnoting here is that we live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with images. I drive down the highway to get to the office here, and I constantly see billboard after billboard after billboard. But I can remember what's on some of those billboards because of the images, not the words. There's no paragraphs on a billboard. There might be a quote or a picture, but we live in such a visual world that it's forgettable if it's all words, and pictures help us remember. By remembering that, and remembering that this is a unique way to show what you know and show what you took from it, that this can be very powerful in the classroom. So that's it for the ISTE Minute. Coming up next is our interview of the week. For this week's interview of the week, I sat down with Brian Welch, special educator from the Conservatory of the Arts High School. Now, let me tell you this, one thing I learned about Brian is that he is a lifelong Springfieldian. At least I think it's Springfieldian. I know he's been here his whole life, worked, taught, lived in Springfield, college in Springfield, loves the area, and has been here for a long time. So take a listen.
I'm Brian Welch. I'm a special educator at the Conservatory of the Arts High School on Franklin Street. This is my 24th year teaching. I've been teaching special ed all 24 years. I went to AIC, so I've remained pretty much for most of my career in Springfield. Not necessarily in Springfield Public, but in the city.
So 24 years, that would be... I'm not going to say how long for a lot of people, but back with using technology early in the district, if I can venture a guess, I'm thinking not an actual copier, but the thing you have to like roll to make copies, or is that, am I going too far back?
You're going too far back. No, I'm more of the beginning part of my career, overheads, the transparency slides that you would write on. Mm-hmm. That was kind of when I started. So that was technology back in my day.
Back in your day. Did you ever melt any in the copier?
No, I'd get in trouble. So
I did when I was student teaching. So early on, it was very basic technology. When did you have the opportunity to start using computers in the classroom?
I had a Mac going through college, so I would actually, I like to type things up because my handwriting isn't so great, and I would use those to make overheads so it looked, nice and professional, and so that was really kind of the first integration of technology.
Well, you had mentioned that you've been teaching for 24 years, but not all of it in Springfield Public Schools. What are some of your other experiences in general?
In general, I did work for a publishing company, an educational publishing company for 7 years. So that was a little break outside of education, still in Springfield. But I was the COO and, kind of got them to the place where they needed to be. And they're remaining a lifestyle type of business.
All right. We're going to jump far ahead out of these 24 years to the points when you can start using technology with your students. What are some of the earliest things that you could do with them?
Geez, I really think it probably jumps to where I am now. and looking at the district's goal with WeLearn and wanting to really embrace that and bring that into the classroom and kind of level the playing field for the kids. So, I do a lot with Brightspace. That's kind of been for the last 2 years has been my real go-to, and last year was a really big push to get everything onto that platform so that all of my classes, there was uniformity and there was really no question. It kind of sets up the framework in which the kids work. They know the routines, how to access it. And certainly it takes a little time at the back end of, saying this is what I expect, this is where you need to go to do this and that. But once they have that down, there's a lot of freedom and they're empowered to kind of just go off and do what they got to do.
So with Brightspace, what were some of the main tools that you focused on using?
I like, as far as the landing page, I always put up some kind of a graphic that's related to the week. So like the one that I have this week is Labor Day. So there's a little Labor Day related graphic, welcoming them back to the classroom. Click on this link to see your agenda. I always take my lesson plan and convert it into a student-friendly agenda so they can kind of see what the week is going to look like. And again, if I'm out for some reason, it's easy for them to just jump into that, follow along, and it gives them a structure to work within the week. So that's kind of the first piece that I use with it.
It's really interesting to hear you talk about how you take your lesson plans and put it into agenda format. You mentioned that you work with special ed.
Right.
I imagine that you have a lot of agendas maybe, or is everyone are you able to group students together, or?
It's per class. There are 3 pull-out classes that I do for ELA, so 9, 10, and 11 this year. So there are 3 individual agendas. The other, I'm inclusion, so there isn't really content specific that I'm providing. I work with the teacher to, help the students in the gen ed setting. So, but for my particular classes, I like that structure for me, for the kids. So there are 3 different ones.
And how have the kids responded to this? Because with coming to high school, depending on what middle school they were coming to, whether they started out in conservatory or jumped in later on, their experience with the learning management system varies. So how has that been with the students?
There's, as far as the 10th and 11th graders that we have, they've been here since their freshman year. So they've had me for a couple of years now. So there's no mystery. It's, just jumping right in. The routines are set and they're up and running. The freshmen, we have one that I'm thinking of, comes from the middle school of the conservatory, and a couple others who have come from other schools. But they all have varied experiences with technology in the district, but they're jumping right in. They're, easily accessing what I'm asking them to. And, the way the schedule's worked out with all of our half days, it's been actually good in the way that it's been small bursts that I've been able to just say, all right, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and just very specific for them to get through.
Nice. So knowing that you're using a lot of Brightspace right now, and knowing that before you hadn't, what kind of differences are you seeing with the work that you're doing with the students, from no technology to everything's up in a learning management system?
They're doing well. I think that especially some who have attendance issues, as long as they know what the structure is, if for some reason they're out, they know what the expectation is, how they can access the particular assignments. Everything's there. There's no, I need to make this up, or I wasn't here this day. What do I need? It's there. So it empowers them to be a little bit more independent, which, kind of fits into another goal with the district of trying to, have some choice in the way that students learn. And so this gives a lot of flexibility by having everything there for them to, kind of pick and choose what they're going to do, how they're going to do it, and when they're going to do it.
So we've been talking a lot about Brightspace. As many of our listeners know, this is our final year with Brightspace, so we're moving to a newer learning management system. What is some advice that you would give to teachers that either have never used Brightspace beyond the assessments that they give, or are just generally not using their computers?
I guess find something. I mean, that's choice is great, and we do have a lot of choice in terms of the district. I think the district embraces technology, and to some extent, I found that you can almost have too much choice. And so I limited myself to pretty much exclusively Brightspace. And there are a few other things that I'll bring in, but I've just developed over time a comfort level with it. And the more, like a student, the more you use it, the more you do it, you're going to increase your comfort level. And you might have different colleagues in the building that you can reach out to support you. And certainly I did that along the way as I was developing. Hey, how do you do this? I don't remember how to download this. And, so I've just grown more comfortable with it by doing and using.
In small chunks. And
Definitely. I don't think, again, it was ever posed to, or I didn't feel that it was posed to the district saying you've got to do this and you've got to be perfect and do all of it. I kind of the first year I picked and chose my activators. I did on Brightspace. And then the next year I added a little more and, just layered it on until my comfort level increased and, it served me well.
So what are some things that you're looking forward to for this year? I know that we just started the school year and we've been blessed with all these half days. Well, you guys have, I haven't. But
sorry.
So what are some things that you're looking forward to?
Really continuing in adding, as far as the technology piece, what I'm doing and how I'm using it in the classroom, making sure that my freshmen are comfortable with it and that they're up and running, and just being able to be self-sufficient and, make them pretty independent.
All right. So our final question of the day, it's always a big one that people have to think. So I'm just preparing you. If you had the opportunity to stand in front of all of the new hires in the district and give them a piece of advice or some wisdom, what would that be? It doesn't have to be related to technology either. So,
you're not alone, I think is a good one. It's, you have colleagues that are there that have been through, everything that you have been through previously. I'm working with a new colleague myself this year who is new to the district, is a veteran teacher, but new to Springfield. And there's a lot of nuances, a lot of things to learn and, just making myself available to her. So if you're new coming into the district, whether you have experience teaching or, have little or no experience, you have colleagues that are there that can help you.
Thank you again for your time. I know we are at the beginning of the year and in the middle of this lovely, crazy schedule that we have. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Wow, what a great time and interview that I got to have with Brian. One of the really cool things I took away from that time with him was how he was really trying to incorporate WeLearn into the classroom with his students. And now he doesn't see the same students all day long, and like many high school teachers, he has them for blocks at times. Whether he's pushing into the classroom or working with them as pull-outs, he's really trying to incorporate the use of technology and technology in authentic ways in the classroom. Ways that students are easily accessible to them, and ways that he doesn't have to be there every moment of every day of every hour telling them what they need to know. By having his agendas and using Brightspace to kind of organize his class, his students can access it at any time. So if they want to take time and study or take time to do work, or if they are out that day, then they can still follow along in the class and catch up pretty easily, which I think is great. I also like that he was talking about independence and choice in learning. And that's one of the things that we're really talking about this year, and we are super excited about the things that Brian is doing in the classroom. So as we wrap up for this week, I just want to remind you that we are available on all sorts of different platforms. If you want to subscribe to us, you can subscribe on Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. We are everywhere. If you are looking to learn more about the things that we've talked about today, I encourage you to check out the show notes. Also, I want to point you out to some great tools. You can always follow me on Twitter. Anytime I find something great and new, I'll post on there what I find. And that is at BeardedTechEd, because as you know, or if you don't, you'll learn, I have a pretty good beard. And so I'm pretty proud of that. At BeardedTechEd, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. And if you do have any questions or comments or concerns, you can always reach out to us at DLA support@springfieldpublicschools.com. I'm Mike Thomas, and this is the SPS Digital Learning Hour.